But let's just be honest here. If you clicked on this video, you're here for one reason and one reason only. And that's that you want to get better recoil control. Now, what I'm not going to do is say that you're going to exit this video hitting just insane spray transfers and having perfect recoil control. What I will say is that if you follow the steps that I lay out in this video, you will 100% be better off than you did before you started watching. And I think no matter what level of skill you are when you're watching this, there's going to be a little bit of something here for everybody that I think will help. So even if you're an absolute beginner or even if you're a pretty decent player, there's going to be something for everybody here. Without any more yapping, let's jump right in and we'll get you guys mastering your recoil control. But before we jump into this video, I have a very big announcement, and that's that I've officially partnered with Advanced GG. And this is a brand that I've been using for quite a long time. Not only to help me stay focused while I'm editing, but also give me a little bit of a boost when I'm on the long CS grinds. Let's be honest, when you're hitting a lose streak, you might need a little boost. And for me, Advanced is what I use for a very long time, and trust me, I would not try and sell anything to you guys that I don't actually use myself. This is a brand I've used for a very long time, and now I'm happy to announce that they're helping support the channel. With that being said, if you are interested in any of the amazing products that Advanced has to offer, you can either use code Tigerr that I'll put up on the screen now, or there's a referral link in the description below. Feel free to use either of those two methods. They both support me and the channel, and also producing videos that you guys enjoy. Now with that out of the way, let's get into it. Let's jump right into things. The first step that I think is absolutely crucial to actually learning how to master your recoil control is learning the difference in the different shooting patterns that you're going to use in CS. Now specifically, I'm talking about when to tap, spray, and burst. There's a bunch of different reasonings as to why you'd ever use these. So to kind of keep it simple, basically, obviously you have your tap firing like this. Pretty simple. Allows you to be a lot more mobile. You can counter strafe. It's especially good at long ranges and is by far the easiest to control where your shots are going. You have your taps. You shoot a few, like 3 to 5 shots at a time, anywhere in there. Also, once again, pretty easy to be precise, but you're standing still for a longer time. And lastly, you have your full out just spray. This is especially useful for if anybody's, close range. You're obviously not going to sit here and try and just keep tapping the head. A lot easier to get quicker kills if you're spraying. So knowing the difference as to when you want to burst, spray, tap, all of these different things, it will take some time to learn, and my best advice is to definitely hop into a deathmatch. See what works for you. Even at the professional level, there's players who do all sorts of different things. Like if you're Scream, you're just running around one tapping everything. Whereas other pros use more of a tap and spray approach. Not to say that you have to be one of the two extremes here, but recognizing how you aim and what you want to do instinctively is going to help you out a lot when it comes to learning what works best for you. And just as a general guideline, I would say that if you're an absolute beginner and you're wondering what good examples of this would be, say there's a player triple. It's obviously going to be a lot easier to sit here and tap and be more precise than it would be to sit here and spray your entire mag, hoping you get the kill. And so when you hop into a deathmatch, and you're learning how to control the weapons with all these different methods of shooting, I think this is one of the most beneficial things you can do to actually master your recoil control. And obviously it looks cool to have perfect spray patterns and know where each bullet's going to go in, like the AK spray, for example. Truth be told, if you're sitting here spending 25 bullets on one target, there's way better ways that you can be aiming that are way more precise and it's gonna be a lot better for you in the long run. So knowing how to tap, spray, and burst, and at what ranges to do so, is going to help you out so much. Now, another thing that I should mention in this video is that you'll see a lot of people mention things for shooting with the AK when you're absolute beginner is to aim for the chest. And that way when you shoot, your recoil pattern will take it up into the head. I don't think that's the best advice, but I also don't agree with aiming all the way at the top of the head if you're a beginner. The reason being, the hitbox actually extends well below where the actual head sits. As you can see, the head hitbox registers all the way down towards the chest. So for most beginner players, I highly recommend learning to have your crosshair placement be around here. This way, if you aim left or right, you have area to miss, you're going to be hitting shoulders. But if you're dead on the middle, as you can see, it's still a headshot. And obviously when you're not just one tapping, if you want to peek out and burst, as you can see, if you're aiming a little bit below the head, that burst will end up taking you straight to a headshot and you don't have to do very much work. Obviously you should still be pulling down and learning how to control your bursts, but the main key thing being that if you keep your crosshair right around the neck level instead of the head, you'll get a lot more headshots as opposed to just flat out missing. And even if you do miss, you're still hitting the chest or the shoulder, so you're still putting damage on the target. But before we move on to the next part, another crazy good way to practice, and this is one that I personally used for a very long time when I was first starting out, is just to pick a spot on the wall and work on tapping while you're strafing. Just work on hitting the same exact target and doing the same thing but with bursts. So you want to shoot 3 to 5 in the same area, 3 to 5, and just make sure your groupings are all pretty tight. And overall, once you get the hang of this, when you're actually aiming at a target, like in your death matches or in your actual games when you're warmed up, just getting the general hang of it is going to make it a million times easier when you're actually in a game. Now, if these tips just weren't good enough for you, and you do actually want to learn the spray patterns, which I do recommend everybody does learn, it's just not where I think you should start with your recoil control. My favorite map to use is Recoil Master, and I will put a link down in the description below. That way you guys all have access to it. And this map is especially beneficial if you just run right up here, and it'll show you the actual spray of the weapon and where you should track all your bullets to. So for example, you just start spraying, and you follow the green dot wherever that goes. That's where you want to move your mouse. Eventually you have pretty good recoil control. Not that this is the best, but we're doing it on the fly here. Then obviously if you look over to the left, they'll have all your different rifles, SMGs, absolutely everything in the game. So becomes super beneficial just to practice, especially if you're working on getting a new weapon. Like the A4 versus the A1S, for example, because they do have drastically different patterns. Another incredibly important thing that I think everybody needs to know as well is all guns come with a different timer for when their recoil resets to being as accurate as it would be on the first bullet. So for example, with the AK, if you're trying to burst and you're doing too many bursts too quickly, so like this, the recoil becomes incredibly inaccurate. As you can see, the shots are kind of just going everywhere. That's obviously not ideal. So it becomes incredibly beneficial to learn how long it takes between bursts. The best way I like doing this is, once again, just finding an area on the wall, shooting 3 to 5 bullets, stopping, moving, learning how long it takes for the gun to reset, that way you're accurate. And another really good way of looking at this is that if we're sitting here and we're just shooting the entire 30 bullets into a wall, you'll notice there's a point in the spray where instead of just going vertical, it starts going hard to the right. And my biggest advice is learning when that point is and learning how to control the recoil up until this point. So if you kind of break it up into different phases, it becomes a lot easier to learn. So first, start off, if you just sit here and aim, and take the burst up until it starts moving hard and to the left. You start being really accurate with even the first, say, 7 shots like here. And that alone is going to help out with your recoil control so much. Then once you feel like you've mastered that, it becomes a lot easier to then work on the next phase. So when it does start to go left and then back to the right, for example, there's not much vertical movement after this point here. If you can time and know precisely when you need to stop pulling down, it becomes a lot easier just to do the entire spray pattern in phases. So you can see if you break down, you pull down, left, right, back to the left. It ends up being a lot easier knowing you don't have to pull down anymore after you get to this stage. So doing this really did help me a lot when I was first learning the spray pattern, especially for the AK. And this tip of working in phases also helps you out a lot when it comes to things like when you're trying to counter strafe and do a few bursts at a time. So you know when you're swinging, you can shoot a few bullets up until it gets to the point where it's swinging left. You can shoot all of these shots, say 5 to 7 shots or so. You know that you're going to be accurate no matter what. And this really does help out a lot when building confidence in not only your recoil control, but also no matter what range you're at least going to be close to the target and give yourself a better shot. And especially as a beginner, sometimes that's all you need. Another incredibly important tool that you can learn on top of the phases of recoil is if you go to your settings, go to your crosshair, and change your crosshair style to legacy. This makes it so that crosshair itself will show you when your weapons are accurate. So for example, if we're taking a burst here, you can see the crosshair opens. So if I'm sitting here doing a lot of bursts in between targets, the crosshair itself will show you if your timings are accurate or not. Now, I personally don't like using these in game, but I do think it's incredibly helpful in practice. So you can see exactly when you're being accurate, when you're not. If you're shooting before the gun is ready and before your crosshair is reset back to normal, it becomes incredibly unpredictable. And overall, it just makes things incredibly difficult. If you pair working on spray patterns in different phases and also using a crosshair like this to help you learn when exactly the gun is accurate, you can see how tight the bullet spreads are here. And in a matter of no time, you should be mastering your recoil control pretty quickly. But as I said at the start of this video, don't get discouraged if things aren't clicking immediately. Recoil control does take time, and my absolute best advice is, without a doubt, just hop in a deathmatch and practice, practice, practice. Overall, how you aim and how you decide which method of shooting is the most efficient for you comes down to just hopping into games and trying things out. And from there, you can get a kind of better idea of what's the most efficient method for you, what works for you, and it will help you become a lot better of a player in the long run. And that's our goal here. So now with all that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. And as always, make sure to leave a like, comment, sub down below if you did. And make sure you guys leave a comment down below if you have any questions that weren't answered in this video. I'm more than happy to talk with all of you guys in the comments and share any more knowledge that I have that I might have missed in this video. But with all that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed. No more yapping for me. I'll see you guys in the next one.